I served a summons, then the top cop said I made it up, so I cornered him in court. I was 23, in law school, and broke, so I worked nights as a process server. Most jobs were simple. Deliver papers, note the details, go home. Then I got a summons for a 19-year-old tied to a hit and run, and the address on his license was a big house. I drove there, walked up with my folder, and rang the bell. The door snapped open, and a big man filled the frame, 6'4" and wide. Before I could even say hello, he shouted, "What do you want? Get off my property!" I said, "Sir, I'm here to serve a legal summons for this address." He stepped into the doorway and blocked me like a wall. "Leave right now, or I'll call the police." I kept my voice calm. "I don't need your signature. I just need to deliver it to anyone over 16 here." He waved his hand like I was trash. "You're trespassing." I held up the papers right there. "If you refuse service, I'm allowed to leave it at the door." His face turned red, and he started yelling again, louder, like he wanted the neighbors to hear. I didn't argue. I said, "Sir, you're refusing service. I'm leaving this at your feet." I set the summons on the step by his shoes, backed away, and walked to my car while he kept shouting threats behind me. The next morning I did what I always did. I went to the office and swore an affidavit of service. I wrote the time, the address, his exact words, and that I left the summons at his feet after he refused to take it. I thought it was routine and forgot about it. 2 days later at 6 a.m., cops hammered on my apartment door. I opened it half asleep and they said my name, read me my rights, and put me in cuffs. The charge was swearing a false affidavit, a felony. My roommate stood in the hallway, staring like I was a stranger. They drove me to the station, took my belt and shoelaces, took my fingerprints, and snapped a mugshot. I sat on a bench under lights thinking, this can't be real. At the station, it got worse. The angry man at the door wasn't a random dad. He was Superintendent Robert Harris, a 30-year police veteran. He filed a complaint saying I never came to his property, never served anything, and my affidavit was made up. So now it was my word against the superintendent of police. I couldn't afford a private lawyer, so I got a public defender. He skimmed the file and said, "He's got medals and status. You're a broke student. They're going to believe him." He said the prosecutor might offer a deal, and if I took it, I'd be admitting I lied. I said, "I can't plead to something I didn't do." At the preliminary hearing, Harris showed up in full uniform and testified like it was nothing. He said he'd never seen me, never spoken to me, and no summons was ever served at his home. The magistrate ordered me to stand trial. After that, everything in my life stalled. No one wanted to hire me with a felony case hanging over my head. School felt pointless because I couldn't focus. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened. I started saving every dollar because I didn't know if I'd end up in jail. I barely slept, and my hands kept shaking in class. Then I heard Harris had gone to his son's court hearing and told that judge the summons had been improperly served and that the process server was being prosecuted for lying. That hit me like a punch. He was using my case to help his son. 4 months after the arrest, my trial finally came. 12 jurors sat watching me like I was already guilty. The prosecutor called me desperate and said I lied to get paid. Then Harris took the stand again, calm and confident. "Mr. Collins never came to my property," he said. "He never served anything." My defender stood up and asked him basic questions, slow and steady. Harris answered smoothly, like he was untouchable. Then my defender leaned in and asked, "Superintendent Harris, how did you know to appear in court on September 18th for your son's hearing?" Harris didn't hesitate. He smiled and said, "It was printed on the summons Mr. Collins threw at my feet." The courtroom went silent. I felt my stomach drop because he had just repeated the exact thing I wrote in my sworn affidavit. My defender let it hang for a second, then said, "So you are testifying that Mr. Collins did come to your home?" Harris blinked. My defender kept going, still calm. "And that he did drop the summons at your feet?" Harris tried to back up, saying he didn't accept it, but the words were already out. The judge took off his glasses and stared at him, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. The prosecutor looked down at his notes and didn't look up for a long moment. My defender sat down and said nothing else. The jury left to deliberate. I couldn't feel my hands. I watched the door like my life was on the other side of it. About 15 minutes later, they came back in. The foreperson stood and said, clear as day, "Not guilty." My knees went weak, and I grabbed the table edge to keep from falling. Now people are saying I ruined his life with one question. Was I wrong?